Hello, my name is Jordan Elam, and this is my poster presentation for my action research project for EDU 5301 at Lubbock Christian University, taught by Dr. Ann Hannell as a partial requirement for this class in order to achieve my master's degree. So a little bit of background about what my project is about. Just as we all hear on TV, in the newspaper, on the news, tabloids, through a variety of different ways that we get this information, student athletes are often perceived, to not be the best students as far as collegiate athletes go. Of course, we've heard the horror stories of kids failing, coaches not being aware of the situation for each of their student athletes, and the list goes on and on and on. And here at LCU, I do work with the men's basketball program. This is my second year in this capacity, but in my limited time here, I will tell you that we've wanted to tackle this issue because obviously our players have to be eligible academically in order to play basketball for us, and so this is a constant struggle that we face, and all athletic programs across the country face. Just trying to figure out how we can get the most of our student athletes, with obviously within the rules. There just again have been plenty of stories where coaches have crossed those boundaries, so that without a doubt there is a fine line there that coaches have to face on a consistent basis. So that really is the background, the premise of why I'm wanting to, or I did decide to tackle this issue. How can we improve our student athletes' academic performance? And that's really what the question I want answered, and hopefully will have answered through this project. The real purpose of this, again, is just the problem with the majority of our student athletes seem to struggle, at different points in time during their academic career. Some struggle right away. Some struggle as the classes get harder and tougher. And then obviously there's a number of factors that go into that that we will get into as we go on through this project in this video. Three major questions that are kind of the guiding questions, if you will, of my action research project. The first of these is, in addressing low coach expectations, how do the efforts of professors compare to those of the how do efforts of professors to help student athletes compare to those efforts by coaches to do so? Now, you may be asking, what does that exactly mean? Believe it or not, again, we'll get into this further as we go on, but believe it or not, many coaches simply only want to know, what is it going to take so this guy can play and get me wins, get the school wins. And really it comes down to wins and losses, when in fact, as our role as coaches, it should go far beyond that. We have a tremendous opportunity working with so many young men for however long they're with us, whether it be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, however long their eligibility lasts with us at LCU. We should be doing all that we can in order to ensure they're getting the most out of their time at LCU. So again, that's something to me that I have noticed with other programs, not necessarily ours, but how do the coaches' expectations stack up with those of professors who are with the students on a more academic basis? So that's my first question. Secondly, in addressing the sole focus of basketball, so this is more towards the student athletes in particular, having just a sole focus on basketball or athletics. Obviously this applies to more than just a basketball team or program, but how honest are the student athletes when communicating with the coaches professors, advisors, and so on and so forth. How honest are the student athletes knowing they must be eligible to play? So, again, one of the strategies we used was consistent grade reports throughout the semester. So we'll look at how honest were they in giving us those grade reports when we had, the professor communications on the other side, and seeing how those stacked up, how those often differed, and then obviously sometimes, hopefully, those matched up in a positive way. So that's sort of my second question, is just addressing, hey, there's two parts to student athlete, and the athlete part tends to be the side that gets focused on more often. So, we want to dive into that first part of student athlete, because again, they are a student first and an athlete second here during their time with us at LCU. And my third question addresses a lack of motivation. Dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds. A motivation it often has to come from the coach. It doesn't always come from within. There's a lot of times where we battle our guys personifying some intrinsic motivation instead of always having to be given the extrinsic motivation and that could be in the form of punishment, consequences, or just a little motivation from the coach in whatever way possible. But so my third question is addressing that lack of motivation that is often prevalent. What factors do student athletes feel influence their academic work? And we'll address each one of these more specifically as we go on. But with 15 athletes coming from a variety of backgrounds, broken families. We have a couple guys that have children. Some are are first generation college attendees, and the list goes on and on and on. The number of factors that can and will, I promise you, influence their academic work. As much as we don't want it to, much of this is out of our control. Now, we can try to put them in the best position possible to succeed. We can get them all the help that is out there provided by the university. But again, there are a number of pressures, outside influences, stressful situations that really fall outside of our control as coaches. So we will look into this, how this affects their motivation, to complete academic work. Answering these three questions should lead directly to our three goals that I've set forth. First being a 2/10 to a 3/10 point increase in GPA. Now that may not sound like a lot, but as a recent college graduate, undergrad, that a 0.2 to 0.3 increase, that is extremely significant. That means you have done something well during that semester. So that was my first goal, 0.2 to 0.3 increase across the board for each one of our guys. And then a 10 to 20% increase in overall grades. Now, obviously, the GPA and the grades, we have a number of freshmen, so we don't have the prior history to go on in regards to collegiate work, So some of these results will be just the returning guys that we have, which is 9 of the 15 players that we have on our roster. But the 10 to 20% increase in grades, that's the second goal that I've looking to attain. And the third, and this may be the most pressing, the most telling, the one that may last the longest, if you will, is implementing time management strategies and study tactics that these young men can use beyond this semester, beyond next semester, beyond even their time in college. To me, this is time management especially is a life skill that is often forgotten in today's society. Knowing how to juggle the many stresses that we all have in life. Understanding that you are not alone in those stresses, in those responsibilities, but at the same time, you've got to be able to handle them. Too many times I think we baby these young men, obviously depending on their backgrounds, but we baby them, we coddle them, in order to make them feel more comfortable, when in reality, there's times where you just have to bear down and get through it, because there's many things in life that nobody enjoys going through. Nobody said college was ever going to be easy, and balancing college and basketball, and some work part-time jobs and obviously have their own families and so on and so forth. Nobody said that was going to be easy. But my third goal here is just to implement those strategies to help them. Okay, obviously this is part of a research project for me personally, but action research is an active process. It's not just for me. It's not just for my satisfaction. It's to make a difference, and that's really the whole point of why I'm doing this, to make a difference in these student athletes' lives and others that follow them. So in order to get there, obviously had to introduce many interventions. Now, the term intervention always, carries to me personally a negative connotation, if you will. I think there's even a TV show, intervention or something like that, where they go in and they intervene with the person's life and try to help them, try to make them better. So in a way, that's what I'm doing. These interventions, they range anywhere from, like I said earlier, grade reports. Throughout the semester, we had these guys write down their grades for each one of their classes periodically throughout the semester, and then just seeing where they were at the first of the semester, and then where they thought they were at the end, and then obviously contributing professor communication in there as well, and then comparing those. This year we had a mandatory study hall period once a week. For 1 hour a day. You had to get 3 hours in a week. It was a required study hall time, so this at least forced our guys to focus on their studies, even if just for an hour at a time, 3 times a week, which hopefully they're putting in more time than that, as obviously is needed in order to succeed in multiple classes. So that, again, grade reports, study hall periods, we began class checks, attendance checks. Sometimes it was just simply emailing professors, hey, was so-and-so in class, how are they doing, how's their attitude, so on and so forth. And then other times we randomly showed up in class, and then unfortunately there were the few times where we caught guys skipping out on class, showing up late for class, sleeping during class even, believe that or not, but those were just unfortunate circumstances that hopefully those guys have learned from. But again, one of the major things that I really focused on, and this kind of answered my third question of motivation and factors that influence their academic work, is many of these guys had no idea what their true learning style was. Now, imagine that, going through your entire school career and never understanding if you learned better by reading something, having something in front of you, a visual learner, or hearing it, auditory, or maybe a combination of the two, or maybe you're a tactile learner where you have to be doing it, actively learning, holding it with your hands, maybe, and it could be a combination of all the above. It could be none of those. There could be a number of other ways. But majority of these guys seriously had no idea. Nobody had ever introduced to them or showed them even the different methods of learning. Most just assume that you just take notes or attempt to take notes during class and then try to read those notes and then go take a test. While that may work for some, it's not clear-cut across the board. And when we revealed that to them, to these individual young men, that it seemed to open their eyes to, hey, I don't have to do everything the way this person does it or that person does it, or even the way the professor may teach may not fit their style. But there's ways to get around that, ways to combat that issue. And before recently, before this project, I really feel that none of these guys had ever been, some of these guys, excuse me, had ever been exposed to what their learning style was. So that survey, really helped. It had some other surveys, questionnaire types, some geared towards athletes, some just towards student body in general, that helped to gain some valuable insight into answering these questions that I have in order to achieve the goals that we want to achieve through this project. So again, a number of interventions were used in this project, but probably the two most significant of these actions were the communications with the individual athletes, and then the communications with the professors, seeing how those matched up, seeing how open the guys were in a closed door setting where it's just the coaches and the individual, as opposed to having to speak out in front of their peers and maybe not look so cool, if you will. And again, you understand that being young adults, peer pressure is still very prevalent. It's a huge deal, obviously, as they continue to grow older and more mature. But you get them in a closed-door setting, it's amazing how much they open up to you about various deals and what they're struggling with, where they think they're doing good, where even ideas to help the team, both in basketball, athletically, academically. I mean, it truly is amazing how open these young men will get in a closed-door setting when they know that, hey, my peers probably aren't ever going to hear any of this. So, again, that information was truly invaluable. There's nothing like that. There's nothing that I could have ever come up with on my own that had I not had that information there at my disposal. And then conversely, the professor communications were extremely helpful as well. Just seeing, because as a coach, you're not in the academic circle of their life, meaning that we aren't in the classroom as them. I know many of my fellow colleagues have done their projects on being at the classroom, the students that they actually have that they're teaching in front of them. As a coach, we're a teacher in a way, but we're a part of their lives in an athletic circumstance as opposed to an academic. Totally. Obviously, the whole point of this is to help them with their academics, help them grow and get the most out of their time at LCU. But even so, we're not in there in the classrooms with them. So there's a large amount of trust that goes into anytime we implemented a strategy, anytime we talked about this or that. There was just we had to have trust built up, because we weren't going to be there in the class when they tried this, or be there when they're studying for the midterm exam or a big exam or a project that they have coming up, or the 10-page paper that they have to write as a research project, or and so on and so forth. There's a million examples just like that. But so trust was huge, and so that's where these personal communications were huge, and with the players, and then obviously the professors, just to gain that more personal insight into where they were struggling and where they were doing well. So then, following these interventions, just some of the assessments we hope to, or I used to hopefully achieve, the goals that we set forth. Just assess through, just at the end, just seeing where their focus was at. Because again, we're around these guys for several hours a day, albeit in an athletic sense. Just seeing where their focus is at, and I really feel like we improved in that area across the board. And that may just be them being more comfortable with us in the program, with their teammates, and then obviously in the schoolwork, and at Lubbock Christian University. And then obviously we wanted all of our guys to achieve passing grades. That was going to be a great way to assess where we were at if we recorded all passing grades, which we did. Absolutely, we did not have one single player fail a course. We had some drop courses because it was the correct course of action, but as far as final grades go, We did not have anybody fail a course, which was a tremendous revelation that was a result of this study, and hopefully something that we did to help these young men. And we just wanted to create more positive interactions, and then obviously an increased motivation towards going to school. I mean, basketball is great, but again, it's a drop in the bucket throughout their lifetime. They've already been given a tremendous opportunity to play for 4 more years, where the majority of the population never gets to compete collegiately in any sport. It doesn't matter what the sport is. So these guys have this tremendous opportunity, and I just feel like some across the country aren't making the most of it, and that could be for a variety of reasons. But as we've worked with these particular guys, we've tried to make them understand that this is not forever. Whether you even continue to go play semi-pro basketball or professionally, if any make it that far, or whatever the situation, it has to end at some point. So then what are you going to do? What's the next step? And that's really what we're aiming for, helping these guys whenever that next step comes. And who knows? It could, nothing is guaranteed in this life. So you never know when being able to play this game is over and done with. Because as coaches, we've already been there. We've moved on to that next chapter in our life. Some earlier than others. Me earlier than our head coach, Coach Duncan, who played collegiately and then semi-pro ball and so on and so forth. So again, you just never know. So then, just obviously as an assessment, evaluating all the data that we have collected, throughout the semester, helped give me the idea, of where we stood in regards to achieving those goals, answering those research questions that we set forth, together at the beginning of the semester. So we're just going to look into these 3 questions, and I just want to reveal to you some of the findings that I found through each one of these 3. And then much of this is extremely telling. Just kind of getting some insight into what are the student athletes thinking? What's going through their mind on a daily basis, a weekly basis, monthly? How do they handle stress? How do they handle the countless responsibilities that are set forth in front of them? Because as student athletes, again, you're held to a higher standard. I mean, you're held to standards by the NAI, the governing body by which we compete in. The Sooner Athletic Conference, again, it's a part of the NAI, and then the LCU Athletic Department, and then our own team rules, and then the rules and guidelines set forth by the university in regards to academics. So they're held to all these different standards, not even including their own personal standards to achieve and to do well, and their parents and their family wanting them to do well. So there's a lot of pressure, a lot of groups to be accountable towards. So again, you understand, or at least I understand, when they struggle, it makes sense. It's a lot to juggle at times. So again, as coaches, we're just trying to help them figure out ways we can help improve their academic performance. And again, that's really the ultimate goal of this particular research project. So in answering the first question, which was again addressing low coach expectations, how did the efforts of professors in helping the student athletes compare to those of the coaches? A legitimate question. Obviously, professors are with them more often in regards to their particular studies. And then as coaches, we're around them more than anybody, albeit not necessarily in an academic sense. So we kind of get both sides here. Something that I found through polling our athletes is that they feel like many coaches were only concerned with if they were going to pass or to fail. Now, I specifically remember that from high school. This is all obviously collegiate level, but unfortunately, many coaches are only concerned with what is going to get you to be able to play for me and get wins, and that's really the focus. And unfortunately, and this is the players, and talking to other coaches as well. It all comes down to wins and losses. And again, going back to the drop in the bucket scenario, basketball is only a drop in the bucket for these young men. Sure, the players will change, the names will change, and the coach will still be there. But again, if we really truly care about helping students or student athletes in their lives, then we need to go far beyond just knowing if they're passing or failing. We need to be helping them achieve higher than just the minimum grade point average, the minimum test score, the minimum this, the minimum that. We need to aim higher, otherwise they're never going to achieve highly. So that was a clear revelation that I found through this research. Then just coaches weren't putting in the extra effort. Even at LCU, that they had never had study hall periods for the men's basketball program. Now they may have had some voluntarily, but in that regard, before this current coaching staff got here, they never had study hall periods. They never had students report specific grades for each of their courses throughout the semester. Obviously coaches had talked to professors in the past, but just in our communications with professors, they appreciate the increased focus on our part in wanting to know how our athletes are doing in their particular classes. And amazingly, and thankfully, that these professors have really answered the call in us trying to help out these guys, and they appreciate that, they understand that, and everyone we've dealt with, they are more than willing to share with us good and bad aspects of such and such athlete, which ultimately just helps us and them. So just putting in the extra effort is huge in answering this question. And then something else I found, and this really came from the professor side, because again we don't see these young men in the academic sense all the time, is just that the student athletes who need the most help, again academically, often ask for the least amount of help. So to me, this comes down to a pride issue, not wanting to stick out amongst their classmates and ask for help. Just the whole deal about being cool. They see the athletes on TV, and again, they're just focused on playing basketball. Professional athletes, they're not having to take a class with classmates. They're not having to go communicate with professors and advisors and stuff like that. So again, it's just trying to get rid of that mentality of where they feel like they can't ask for help. And as coaches, that's just a major role that we need to have to be more proactive in our approach in helping these young men. So helping them feel like they can come to us if they have a question, go to a professor if they have a question. Again, it's just a mentality that we as coaches have to plant in them, and then hopefully it just grows over time as they grow, as people, as humans within our program and at the university, obviously. And then just to me, we can always do more. When we think we've done enough, we probably can do a little more. Again, we don't want to micromanage our players, our athletes in any way. We should want to help them. We should want the very best for them, whether it's in basketball or academically, in their families, jobs, relationships, so on and so forth. We can do more to help these guys, and that really is the overarching theme to answer this question, is if we have low expectations, how are the players supposed to have high expectations? So again, a lot of that responsibility falls on us as coaches in order to do more to help the individual athletes out. So moving on, our second question, to address a poor focus on academics or a sole focus on basketball. How honest are our student athletes knowing they have to be eligible to play? They have to succeed in the classroom. Again, it's the focus for most, and it's not every one of these young men. We have some that we never have to worry about whatsoever. I mean, it may be a small few, but there's some that you never have to worry about. Behavioral issues, grades, them getting in trouble on the weekends, them not working hard in practice, etc., and so on and so forth. You just never have to worry about the small group of these guys. So the rest of them, It just seems like the major focus is on basketball, and that's understandable. The only reason most of these guys are at LCU is to play basketball. Had we not recruited them, they would probably not be at Lubbock Christian University, as we know it today. And that's just the harsh reality of it. Is most of these guys come from across the state, some even halfway across the country. So again, they wouldn't be at LCU if it wasn't for basketball. So you sort of understand them just wanting to focus on basketball, but at the same time, they're here to get an education first, because the education and the degree is going to last far longer than their time playing basketball if they'll take advantage of it. So some of the findings I found, just researching this, just kind of diving into this, is many student athletes, they have no clue what's required of them in individual classes, which to me is amazing, because all you have to do is just look at the syllabus for your class. Talk to the professor once in a blue moon, or if it's online, just read the required course requirements, and so on and so forth. Know when the test dates are, know when the assignments are due, know what percentage of the grade is your test score and your project score and your homework, your daily work, and just how you don't know that, I don't know. So to me, that just shows either laziness or indifference. And that's a common theme that we have found, as I was saying with the class attendance deal. You're either lazy or you're indifferent if you're not going to class. Now there have been some legitimate excuses, and that they are out there, and we understand that. We're as a coaching staff, we're very lenient, very approachable when it comes to stuff like that. But however, on the flip side, we expect our guys to act a certain way. We expect our guys to uphold the standards that we have set upon them, the athletic has set upon them, the conference, the nation, the governing body of the NAI, and so on and so forth. So we do expect a lot from these guys, and when they're not meeting those expectations, that's where we have to step in. A very telling statistic that came from my research was the correlation between GPA and class attendance, and it's on my physical poster as a part of my final project that I recently turned in, and it's just a chart, and it shows the breakdown of the average times that a student athlete has missed a class. So it's 0 to 1, 2 to 3, and then 4 or more times. And not shockingly, those that only missed 0 to 1 times on average, and this is the entire team, had a 3.7 GPA, give or take. Then it went down, slightly to 2 to 3 absences. It was a 3.5 or somewhere around there, and then it was a steep drop off, 4+. And that's as far as I went with that. I'm sure I could have carried that further and really got down to where, if you're not going to class, your grades, odds are, going to suffer unless you're just a really, really good student that can overcome that, which unfortunately we don't have a lot of those guys. There's not a lot of those people out there in college to begin with. You've got to go to class to achieve the scores that you need to achieve to be able to play, to pass, to all those things. And so that there was a direct correlation between missing class and low GPA for the most part. Now, there's the few exceptions every semester, okay, or a teacher doesn't take, or a professor, doesn't take attendance, or whatever the case may be. There's no absolutes, in this research. It's just based on the majority. That's from the data that I collected. This is how it was. And so there was, if you go to class, your grades are probably going to be better. If you don't go to class, they're going to be lower. It seems simple, but it's the honest truth. And so then just knowing that, and going back to these grade reports, and just interacting with our players on a regular basis, just seeing how honest they were. Honesty is something that, it goes far beyond basketball. It goes far beyond school. And that's something that will be carried over into every aspect, of our lives. And so just seeing how honest they were, even though they didn't know the course requirements. So were they being dishonest, or they really didn't know? That's something that, became a battle with some guys. Because you want to trust them, you want to believe them. You recruited them. We've brought them in. You want the best for them. But at the same time, you've got to kind of have an open mind with some of this. So, so not knowing class requirements, to me I guess just goes back to either laziness or indifference. Hopefully it's not dishonesty, but in some cases I could see where that would certainly fit in. So, again, for the most part, we found that our guys were pretty honest when they knew actually what to expect, knowing that they had to be eligible to play, by doing well in their classes. So, and then lastly, addressing a lack of motivation, the factors that the student athletes feel affect their academic work. Obviously home factors have a huge deal. The statistics show, this isn't my work, but the statistics show, clearly that, most of these guys would be behind the 8 ball because they come from broken families. Some of them have children. We have a large African American portion of our team. I think 8 out of the 15, so the majority are African American. There is according to Kendra Brown in the TRIO program, if I'm not mistaken, a 10% graduation rate of African American males at Lubbock Christian University. So from the time, and obviously the majority of those are athletes, whether it be basketball or baseball or whatever other sport. But again, that's an extremely telling sign that is already going against these guys before they even step foot on the court or in a classroom. So their backgrounds can create a stressful situation before they even get going. We got guys that are away from home for the first time, or they're at a Christian school and they went to a big 5A school where who knows what was going on a daily basis. So there's some really stressful times, especially at the first of the semester. So again, motivation for academics was probably not as high as it is even at the end, or as we went on. So again, there's countless issues that affect academics, unfortunately, even athletics for that matter. Something that was frightening, if you will, especially as a coach, is just in polling our guys. They felt like, the majority of them felt like they were given grades by teachers just because of their athletic status as a basketball player. So in essence, they had to do minimal work, possibly got due dates moved back, or just flat out given grades just so that they would pass, because they want, the teacher, the school wants to see those kids play, and represent the school, and all those good things. So, but unfortunately, that's a travesty. It does the student athletes a disservice, because they get to college and guess what? It's not that way. It's not to say professors aren't going to help you out if you need it, or if you are worthy of such help. At the same time, to give out grades, that's unethical on a whole number of levels. So unfortunately, that's something that obviously does happen, because almost to the man, these guys were admitting that in the past they felt like they had been given grades. Now, whether they had concrete examples or evidence of that, that's another story. But the fact that they felt that way, and then now they're in college where they're not getting that treatment, you can see where the motivation could be low. Just expecting to be handed a grade, by putting in minimal effort, you can see where the motivation factor would be low there. And then not knowing their learning style. Me personally, that would just kill my motivation to want to learn when you're basically beating your head against the wall because you don't know how to go about studying. You don't know how to go about writing this paper, taking this test, taking notes, etc., etc., etc. But by just implementing that, again, I touched on it earlier, just their eyes were open to, wow, I don't have to just listen to the teacher and try to take notes. I might need to record a lecture, come back, take notes, rewrite my notes, revise my notes, go get help, go turn in a rough draft for a paper instead of just writing it. There's so many different ways to go about just simply learning, simply getting through a class without being inundated with stress and pressure, and just eventually just giving up, because that's the answer that most of them result in, is that they just give up. It's hard. As a competitor, you want to fight, you want to be good at what you're doing, and then when school gets tough, it's the result for many of these guys is just to quit, just to hang it up, to not put in effort, and just say, hey, the results aren't going to change anyway, so why waste my time? And that, I think that's pretty common with the kids that, struggle with, with their schoolwork. And I understand that. We as coaches understand that, but at the same time, knowing they can do so much better, seeing how competitive they are, and then just when it comes to academics, how taken back they are by not being able to perform the way they want to, or succeed the way they're used to on the basketball court. And so, just by helping them understand their learning style, and again, the TRIO program has been an enormous help for many of these guys. They guarantee that you'll pass if you'll fulfill all the requirements they ask of you. Whether that, a meeting with your advisor on a regular basis, turning in your work, having all your work edited and revised by members of their staff. And there's each person's different. Each one of us is different. And it's just a great program, and the guys that we have involved with it have succeeded and excelled in ways I don't even think they knew how. And so that has increased motivation. Just getting the families on board has increased motivation. Again, many of these guys were homesick, never been away from home before, so their focus, their motivation hasn't been on academics. It probably never has before, because they're not used to the strenuous responsibilities, the coursework, the load work, taking 5 hours of could be tough courses, if you will. And having homework and tests and midterms and papers and this and that. There's so many different things that some of these guys weren't ever used to at their previous school or their high school. For some of them, and so it's something that I found was the motivation for school was low, especially in the beginning. But I think as we've gone on, as we've implemented some of these interventions, as we've helped them with their study tactics and practices, and just them being more comfortable in their entire situation, the motivation has gotten better, which in turn means their grades have gone up, which in turn means we're going to meet the goals that we set forth at the first of the semester for them as a team, individually, so on and so forth. So, again, these 3 research questions, sure, they're just questions, but at the same time, they're helping to further understand us, to further understand, where we can be better, where we can help them be better, where we can step in and intervene with some of these guys and be like, hey, let's try this, or get them the help that they need, because that's ultimately what we're here for. Sure, we want to win games, we want to be successful as coaches. It's our job, but at the same time, we're here to help these kids, and those that are in the business not for that reason, not to help people, not to positively alter someone's life, to me is in it for the wrong reasons. And unfortunately, those people are prevalent throughout the country, no matter what sport we're talking about, professionally, collegiately, high school, junior high, AAU, summer ball, club ball, all the above. There's plenty that are in it for all the wrong reasons. And again, that was not the focus of this project whatsoever. It was to help kids, help our student athletes to perform better in the classroom, and I think we did that. To conclude and to kind of wrap this all up, again, we can do more. As coaches, we can absolutely do more. We need to help these guys in whatever way possible. It's not good enough just to worry about, well, are they passing or are they failing, and then leave it at that. Just leave their studies completely up to them, not get them the help, and so on and so forth. We are responsible for them. Their families have entrusted us with helping them grow into adults, grow into men that are going to leave LCU and be productive citizens, to be fathers, to be husbands, brothers, co-workers, and so on and so forth. That's really our mission. And if we happen to win some games along the way, then so be it. But these guys really are capable people. They're hard workers. I know a lot of this sounds negative, like they don't work, but they try hard. I mean, if those that have seen him on the basketball court know that for sure. And I'm sure those same professors see glimpses of that, within their classroom. They're competitors. They don't want to fail. I mean, most athletes, are competitors. Nobody wants to fail. Nobody wants to let themselves down, let their family down, their teammates, their coaches down. No, I mean, I don't think anybody sets out to do that, at the first of the semester, first of the school year. But, again, you have to have an active approach as a coach in helping that. And that's the whole point of this action research project in the first place, is to be proactive, not to just sit back with all this data, with all these strategies, ideas, and just sit on them. That's not the point of this action research project. The point is to go out, to make changes, to help people, to be a positive impact in the lives of students, and in this case, student athletes. That's the point of the action research project. To me, this study would apply to most every athletic program. Obviously, it would differ with the different athletic teams with the number of participants or players on the roster. We had 15. Obviously, a football team would have, a baseball team would have way more. Obviously, a golf team, a cross country team, tennis or whatever would have far less. So could see that being a limitation, or it could help. I mean, I think if I had to do it over again, I would focus just on our at-risk students, or the students that have showed prior history of being at risk, whether it be home factors, attitude, behavioral problems, test scores. I mean, there's a variety of reasons why somebody could be labeled at risk. So if I had to do it again, I'd probably just focus on them. And again, just understanding that basketball is not the most important. Working towards a degree, working, to better their lives, and that's what's most important. That's the real purpose of what we're doing. I'm sure you're wondering, did we achieve the goals? And that's how I'm going to end this and say absolutely we did. We were able to achieve all three goals. Now I will say final exams are going on as we speak. So I was not able to access their permanent final grades for this semester. However, we did a grade report based on where they were at, and we had plenty of almost 100% professor communications for our at-risk student athletes, and we compared what they had wrote down with those of the professors, and for the most part they added up. We didn't have anybody fail a course. Again, I said we had some guys drop a course, which ended up being a very wise thing to do, but we had nobody fail a course. And then based on my calculations, we had GPA increases of our guys that were returning. Again, the freshmen didn't have a previous GPA, of at least 0.15, I believe, was the least. So it wasn't quite 0.2 for that individual, but the other returners on our basketball team did in fact fall within the 0.2 to 0.3 GPA increase, which I was extremely proud of. Now moving on, we had a 10 to 20% increase in overall grades from the first of the semester. to the end. We had guys, some, I mean, just night and day. We had some guys hop into the trio program at different points in the semester, and those grades just went up and up and up. So that was tremendous to see. Just see how that program and those people, those employees, just truly are a blessing to the university, and then to our guys as well. And then just the improved use of time management strategies and study tactics. That was something that I personally could see just from walking through on several of our study hall sessions. At first, we had guys more concerned with the music they were listening to, whether the TV was on, talking to their neighbor, their peers, so on and so forth, being on their phone, texting, browsing the web, and just over time, after giving them ideas, implementing some of these strategies, once they knew their learning style, they many of them, it was a night and day difference. It really was. Then the time management, especially the couple of guys we had with children, there were times where I think both of them felt in over their head, and understandably so. But we worked with them. We helped them get set up with time management strategies. We even let them bring their kids up to practice. There were a number of things that we utilized with them to help them better their lives, their families, because they're not taking care of this just themselves. They've got girlfriends and wives and kids and so on and so forth. So I'm personally not having a family, but our assistant coach and head coach have families and children, so they were able to positively help those guys in that area. And then the study tactics, just if anything, uncovering their learning style was helped as much as any other strategy that I even attempted to use this semester. And so we were able through it all, we were able to, I feel like, achieve all the 3 goals that I set forth at the beginning of this action research project. So I felt this was a tremendous success. I will definitely share it with our coaching staff and begin to use some of this information right away. I mean, we've got another semester just right around the corner. I will certainly consider sharing it with coaches of other teams on campus, as I'm around those men and women on a consistent basis, and then just kind of go from there. But just knowing all this now, I feel like, as a coach, we can do more. We can do more to help these, young men and women out that we come into contact with on a daily basis. Because while we may have several years to work with them, it's not forever. So the time we're spending with them, is of grave importance. And I'll close with our head coach, Coach Duncan. We close out, came up with this. As long as I've been working with him, but he used this at his previous school. But we close out every practice drill. Anytime we have a team huddle, we all get in there together. We say 323 shafts, which it refers to Colossians 3:23, which just essentially says, "In all that you do it as if working for the Lord and not for men." And to me, that just means God's given us all sorts of talents, abilities, opportunities, and we got to make the most of them. If we're not making the most of them, then we're not, fulfilling, what the Lord, gave to us to fulfill. And so, as coaches, as educators, we have tremendous opportunities to influence positively young people's lives. And if we're not doing that, then to me, it's just a disservice to those kids. So we owe it to them to help them out, because along the way, somebody helped us out at some point. Somebody made an impact on us to make us do what we're doing today. So that's what I'll close with. But that's kind of my mission, just in performing this project and coaching in general, is just to make a difference. Even if it's just in one person's life, it'd be so worth it. But the more, the merrier, obviously. So I thank you for listening. And again, I'm Jordan Elam with the EDU 5301 at Lubbock Christian University, Action Research. I look forward to feedback from this, and I hope I provided some insight into the many struggles of student athletes in the classroom. Thank you for listening.